Mr. President, the intelligence report is ready. Colonel Moussa Kaboré placed a thick file on Ibrahim Traoré's desk. According to unconfirmed information, there's a deep infiltration within our army. A new wave of coups is being planned in West Africa. Burkina Faso is among the targets. When Traoré opened the file, the photos he saw froze his blood. High-ranking officers of his army were photographed meeting with French intelligence officials in secret meetings in Paris. Traoré's eyes caught the photo of the Chief of General Staff. "I don't want to believe this," he murmured. "Who else have you shared this information with?" Colonel Kaboré lowered his voice. "No one, Mr. President. We no longer know who to trust." Ibrahim Traoré looked at the lights of Ouagadougou city through the large window in his office. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso had taken major steps toward independence, closing French bases and taking control of natural resources. But it seemed the former colonizers were struggling to return with new tactics. "Where did you get this intelligence?" asked Traoré, still standing in front of the window. "From a reliable source in Mali," said Colonel Kaboré. "Mali prevented a coup attempt just last week. The documents they seized indicate a simultaneous coup across all of West Africa. Niger, Guinea, and us. We're all targets." Traoré returned to his desk and examined the file again. The meetings of Chief of General Staff General Antoine Bamoro in Paris were clearly visible. 3 senior colonels were also with him. "This is not something Bamoro could do alone," said Traoré. "There must be a large network in the army. Our estimate is that at least 20% of our army is involved in the conspiracy," said Kaboré. "Maybe more." Traoré took a deep breath. "What can we do? Arresting them all would trigger the coup. Doing nothing puts the country at risk." Colonel Kaboré said hesitantly, "Mr. President, I have an idea, but it will require you to take a very big risk." "Tell me." "We need to infiltrate the army," said Kaboré. "We need to gather information from the inside. We need to expose the entire network." "Who will you send? It seems there's no one left to trust in the army." Kaboré looked directly into Traoré's eyes. "We won't send anyone, Mr. President. You will go yourself." Traoré raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Me? That's impossible. I am the leader of the country. How can I infiltrate the army?" "You'll go to a base where no one knows you. We'll make you unrecognizable. A 3-week operation. During this time, you can observe the army from the inside, identify who the conspirators are." Traoré thought for a while. It was a dangerous plan, but there seemed to be no other option. "Which base will it be?" "3rd Commando Brigade," said Kaboré. "In the east of the country, at the Niger border. We suspect it's the center of the coup plan." "What about the palace? How will we explain the president's absence?" "We'll make an official announcement. We'll announce that you've left the country for a special summit of the African Union. We won't let anyone become suspicious." As a trained soldier, Traoré could assess the risks. If he were caught, it could accelerate the coup plan. But if he succeeded, he would save his country from a major threat. "Start preparations immediately," he finally said. "I'll be ready in 3 days." The operation was meticulously planned. Traoré's appearance was completely changed. His hair and beard were cut differently, glasses were added, even his walk was changed. His new identity was prepared. Private Ibrahim Conti, 28 years old, from a poor neighborhood in Ouagadougou, newly joined the army. 3 days later, in the early morning, Ibrahim Traoré, now as Private Conti, was at the gate of the 3rd Commando Brigade. Transfer order in hand, bag on shoulder, he looked like an ordinary soldier. "Welcome, Private Conti," said the sergeant at the entrance, examining the documents. "Report to the 3rd Company. Captain Almaru is waiting for you." Traoré nodded and proceeded into the military base. Inside, hundreds of soldiers were carrying out their daily routines: training, cleaning, guard duty. Everyone seemed busy. Traoré carefully observed the surroundings, looking for familiar faces. When he reached the 3rd Company, Captain Jean Almaru greeted him with a cold look. "New transfer, huh? No gossip here, no lazy soldiers. Understood?" "Yes, Commander," said Traoré, with perfect military posture. "Settle in that bunk in the corner. Be at the training ground in 5 minutes." Traoré quickly did as told. As he settled into his bunk, he examined the other soldiers in the barracks. Most looked young and inexperienced. Some were giving him curious looks, but no one approached. 5 minutes later, he was at the training ground. 20 soldiers were lined up, waiting for Sergeant Diallo's orders. Traoré blended in. trying to act like an ordinary private. The sergeant started a tough training program: running, push-ups, sit-ups, obstacle course. Although Traoré was physically fit, he was careful not to stand out from the other soldiers. The first day passed with introductions and observations. Traoré noticed that Captain Almaru was a harsh and undisciplined commander. He treated his soldiers poorly, giving severe punishments even for minor mistakes. But even more concerning were his occasional political comments. Traoré's policies are sinking the country, he heard Almaru mutter to another officer. By opposing the French, we're isolating ourselves. Traoré noted these comments in his mind, but they weren't yet concrete evidence of a coup plan. He needed more information. During the first week, Traoré adapted to life on the base. He ate with ordinary soldiers, used the same toilets, went through the same tough training. He continued his observations and gradually began to understand the command structure of the base. The 3rd Commando Brigade was led by Colonel Victor Zungrana, a tough, disciplined, and charismatic leader. He was respected among the soldiers. Traoré watched the colonel closely but couldn't see any indication that he was involved in the coup plan. Under him were 3 battalion commanders. Traoré's suspicions particularly focused on Lieutenant Colonel Marcel Sandaogo. Sandaogo frequently made secret phone calls and whispered with other officers. Another interesting thing Traoré noticed was advisors who frequently came to the base. These men, with French accents and civilian clothes, had meetings with high-ranking officers for hours. Though officially they were training advisors, Traoré suspected they were French intelligence agents. One night, during guard duty, as Traoré patrolled near the headquarters building, he heard voices coming from an open window. Inside, Colonel Zungrana, Lieutenant Colonel Sandaogo, and 2 advisors were in a meeting. "Has the date been set?" asked a voice with a French accent. "Yes," said Zungrana. "We will act next month, on the 15th. Traoré will be going to Addis Ababa for the African Union meeting. In his absence, we will seize the palace." "What if there's resistance?" asked the other Frenchman. "The presidential guards are loyal to us," said Sandaogo confidently. "We have men inside. The doors will be opened for us." Traoré's heart raced. Here was the evidence. A coup was indeed being planned, and the highest-ranking commanders were involved. "Will you have full support from Paris?" asked the French advisor. "Yes," said Zungrana. "According to our agreement, when the coup succeeds, we will return control of the mines to French companies and reopen the military bases." This was the final proof Traoré wanted to hear. The coup was not just a military move but a plan to re-establish France's influence in Burkina Faso. Traoré moved away from the window and continued his patrol. Now he needed to relay the information to Colonel Caboret. But how? Leaving the base was forbidden, and any attempt to communicate could raise suspicion. The next day, an elderly woman approached him in the village outside the base. Traoré was on guard duty, protecting the base's gate. "Soldier," said the woman, "can I have some water?" As Traoré gave the woman water, she slipped a note into his hand. There was a message from Colonel Caboret: "Information flow cut off. Palace security at risk. Return immediately." The situation was critical. Traoré began planning his escape for the next day. However, that night, an unexpected development occurred. At midnight, armed soldiers entered the barracks. "Private Conti," shouted the sergeant. "Get up and come with us immediately." Traoré woke up, his heart racing. Had his identity been exposed? He got out of bed and followed the soldiers. He was taken to the headquarters building, directly to Colonel Zungrana's office. Inside, Zungrana, Sandaogo, and 3 advisors were waiting for him. There was a phone on the table. "Conti," said Zungrana, "or should I call you Mr. President?" Traoré's heart seemed to stop. His identity had been exposed. But how? "What do you mean, Colonel?" he said, trying to stay calm. "Drop the act," said Sandaogo harshly. "We know who you are. Our friends in Mali warned us. You were the one who prevented the coup attempt there. And now you're trying to infiltrate your army." Traoré assessed escape routes. There were 2 armed soldiers at the door. The window was too high. If he reached for his weapon, he would probably be shot. "So what happens now?" asked Traoré, still trying to maintain his role as Private Conti. "Now," said Zungrana, "we're going to accelerate our plan a bit. The coup starts tonight. And you will be our main guest." The French advisor took the phone and dialed a number. "Operation is starting," he said. "We have the target. Move to seize the palace." Alarm bells were ringing in Traoré's mind. The palace was under attack. There were traitors among the presidential guards. And he was trapped here. Your presidential adventure ends here, Traoré, said Zungrana with a cold smile. We're going to take you to a camp. There, you will sign new agreements giving concessions to French companies, allowing the reopening of bases. Then, you will resign. Due to your health, of course. And if I don't sign? Asked Traoré. Then, I'm afraid, you will die in a car accident, said Sandaogo. The choice is yours. Just then, an explosion was heard. Then gunfire. A battle had begun outside the building. What's happening? Asked Zungrana anxiously. One of the soldiers at the door ran outside to check the situation. Helicopter sounds were coming from outside. Then, something hit the roof of the building. Those in the office shook. Special forces, shouted the returning soldier. They've surrounded the base. Traoré smiled. It seems your plan has encountered an unexpected obstacle, Colonel. Zungrana angrily drew his weapon and pointed it at Traoré. Maybe I'm going down, but you're coming with me. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, the windows shattered, and Special Forces soldiers rushed in. Don't move, they shouted, pointing their weapons at everyone in the room. Zungrana froze in surprise. The Special Forces quickly secured the room, neutralizing all the coup planners. Special Forces Commander Major Ouedraogo entered and saluted Traoré. Mr. President, are you all right? I'm fine, Major, said Traoré. What's the status of the palace? Secure, sir. We identified and neutralized the traitors among the guards. Colonel Caboret has taken control of the palace. Traoré breathed a sigh of relief. Their plan had worked. The operation was successful. What about my message? The information I sent through the woman? We received it, sir. After learning about the coup plan, we prepared all units. But we were worried about you. When we learned your identity had been exposed, we acted immediately. Traoré turned to Colonel Zungrana, who now stood with his hands cuffed. You wanted to sell my country to France. But Burkina Faso is no longer the old Burkina Faso. We are independent, and we will remain so. Zungrana didn't respond, but the anger in his eyes said everything. Take them all away, ordered Traoré. They will be tried. The Special Forces took the coup planners outside the building. Outside, helicopters and armored vehicles had surrounded the base. The entire unit had been brought under control. Traoré removed his private Conti uniform and put on the presidential uniform that was brought to him. He fixed his hair and beard, removed his glasses. The transformation was complete. As he boarded the helicopter, he saw the soldiers of the 3rd Commando Brigade who had remained loyal saluting him. Many were surprised, learning that the ordinary Private Conti who had been among them for the past 3 weeks was actually their president had astonished them. On the way back to Ouagadougou, Traoré was thinking about the results of the operation. The coup plan had failed, but this was just the beginning. Completely cleansing the French influence within the army would be a long process. When he arrived at the palace, Colonel Caboret greeted him. Mr. President, the operation was successful. All traitors have been identified and arrested. How many? Asked Traoré. 78 officers in the army, 15 soldiers in the presidential guards. And of course, the French intelligence agents, 12 people have been identified so far. Traoré nodded. What about the Chief of General Staff, General Bamoro? Arrested, sir. When the attack on the palace began, he sided with the traitors. Traoré thoughtfully walked to his office. His job wasn't done yet. Now, he had to explain the truth to the people and guide the country in a new direction. That evening, he addressed the nation on national television. In his military uniform, he stood behind his desk. The Burkina Faso flag waved behind him. Dear people of Burkina Faso, he began. Today, our country faced a great danger. Traitors who had infiltrated our army planned a coup with France's support. Their aim was to reverse our independence policies, to sell our natural resources to foreigners again, and to make our country a colony once more. The screen showed images of the arrested coup planners. When I learned of this conspiracy, I made an extraordinary decision. I personally infiltrated my army, as a private, to monitor the planned coup from the inside. For 3 weeks, I lived as an ordinary soldier in the 3rd Commando Brigade, trained, stood guard. Now on the screen were images of Traoré disguised as Private Conti, training, standing guard, eating with other soldiers. During this time, I learned the details of the plan to recolonize Burkina Faso. Those who made this plan were traitors who only thought of their own interests. But today, with the help of our brave security forces, we foiled this conspiracy. The coup attempt failed. Burkina Faso is still free, still independent. At the end of his speech, Traoré said with a determined expression, "This incident has shown us that our struggle for independence continues. The colonizers are trying to return with different methods. But I tell them this, Burkina Faso will never bow. Our resources are ours, our lands are ours, our destiny is in our hands." The speech was met with great enthusiasm throughout the country. People took to the streets, organizing demonstrations supporting Traoré and his independence policies. Traoré's personal sacrifice and courage had transformed him into a hero in the eyes of the people. A week after the coup attempt, Traoré implemented a major restructuring in the army. All suspicious officers were removed, replaced by young and patriotic officers. The presidential guards were completely reorganized. The diplomatic crisis with France deepened. France denied allegations that it was involved in the coup plan, but the arrested agents and seized documents showed that French intelligence was directly involved. Traoré called the African Union to an emergency meeting. At the meeting, he presented all the evidence to the leaders of other African countries. "This is not just an attack against Burkina Faso," he said. "This is an attack against the independence of all Africa. Today Burkina Faso, tomorrow Mali, then Niger. We must unite against France's neo-colonialist policies." This call resonated with other leaders. The African Union condemned France and called for other African countries to investigate French influence within their armies. 3 months after the failed coup attempt, Traoré once again entered the army, this time openly, to visit the restructured 3rd Commando Brigade. He addressed the soldiers. "3 months ago, I was among you as Private Conti. Most of you didn't recognize me, but I recognized you. I saw your courage, your patriotism. There may be traitors within our army, but the majority of you are the true sons of Burkina Faso." As he finished his speech, he said, "A leader should lead his people not from behind a desk, but from among them. I will always be among my people. Their hardships, struggles, dreams will be mine too. For the true independence of Burkina Faso, we will work together." Traoré's infiltration operation went down in history as one of the bravest and riskiest examples of leadership in Burkina Faso's recent history. This event not only prevented a coup attempt but also became a turning point in Africa's struggle for independence. And it all began with an intelligence file placed on Ibrahim Traoré's desk. This story was proof that a leader could take any risk for his country, even hiding his identity and living as an ordinary soldier. Traoré's name began to be mentioned as one of the symbols of Africa's struggle for independence and dignity, like Thomas Sankara. And Burkina Faso once again stood out as the bravest and most determined country on the continent.